Barcelona still want to sign Marcus Rashford despite being about to close a deal for Nico Williams. Antony and Rashford both willing to take wage cuts to leave Man United, but is Sancho, because there's interest from Juventus and Napoli in Sancho, and some advancements seem to be going on today. We're going to talk about the latest on Emi Martinez, a new target keeper from Serie A, the latest on Onana's exit. But before we get into all of that news, I want to talk about a story on Ayden Heaven, how he turned down rivals for Manchester United, and how Manchester United have been quite good at convincing people to join in the window. Apart from the strikers, and talking of strikers, if Gyökeres goes to Arsenal, with Delap at Chelsea, with Ekitike, ridiculous price, Manchester United may be making a surprise move at striker later in the window, with reports that Vlahovic would be willing to join United for 200k a week, which is a lot less than what he's on now. And well, it's still a lot of money a week. He is a very good striker. So, hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to your 10-minute Manchester United news, transfer news, and update roundup. This is the late night 10-minute roundup where every evening throughout the transfer window, when there actually is some news, which is most evenings, we do a 10-minute roundup of all the news in a short video, so you guys are up to date. Chelsea have just lost 3-1 in the Club World Cup as well. So let's start with this Ayden Heaven story. We'll then get into the Vlahovic, the striker news, the goalkeeping news, and then we'll get into the outs. Laurie Whitwell, who is one of the best journalists in the Manchester United space, he writes for The Athletic, as I've always recommended when it comes to media. I think The Athletic is great because you pay like £1 a month for it, which means it doesn't need to get like clicks. So it's not like clickbait, or it's not, fake news. They make sure they go and write some good quality stuff. And Laurie Whitwell is among one of the best United journalists, in my opinion. And he said that Jason Wilcox arranged for Ayden Heaven to visit Old Trafford. I think it was around late January, around the Rangers game. And this was because they liked Ayden Heaven, but they were learning. He was in, talks with Frankfurt officials. He was quite close to moving to Frankfurt. He also had interest from Chelsea, Newcastle, and Barcelona and Marseille. So that's not an easy race to win, particularly for a young player where they might think, oh, maybe I should go to Germany. That's what a lot of other young English players have done and established myself. But Wilcox met him and he convinced him United was the place to join. I think having Cheeto there helped. I think showing him what we did with Garnacho and, of course, Mano last year under Ten Hag in the FA Cup final probably helped. Obviously, with Cheeto leaving Arsenal for Man United, I think Ten Hag, believe it or not, probably helped us encourage youth because of Garnacho and Mano's progress under him. But I think Jason Wilcox came in and said, look, this is Amorim's system. You are the guy that suits Amorim's system. And I will say this, Ayden Heaven almost, you never know, it's very early. But I'm sitting here right now thinking that Ayden Heaven could be the best bit of business we do post Sir Alex Ferguson. Like, Bruno for me is obviously it now, but when you're talking 1.5 million, like Ayden Heaven could be as good as Lenny Euro and has that ceiling. And you look at his physical qualities and his technical qualities, he's perfect for a back three system, particularly Amorim's kind of system. And I think he's been faultless whenever he played. He looked really good in postseason tour, of course, not the best opposition, but the Fulham game, was it the Lyon? Was it not the Lyon game? Was it the Sociedad game? It was one of the games he stepped in there. He's been really, really impressive. I remember he came on versus Arsenal and did well. And I have to say, like, for me, Ayden Heaven has been an excellent addition to United. And he's turned down rivals, and there was talk of him even turning down better financial offers, is what Laurie Whitwell was saying, for Manchester United. And I think the fact that Mbumo's turned down other clubs to United, Cunha's turned down other clubs to United, and Ayden Heaven's turned down other clubs for Manchester United, even though we've missed out on Delap and potentially Gyökeres, I think that actually, despite finishing 15th, we've done a very good job at convincing players to join this project. So Ineos must be selling something, and maybe that can give us some optimism for the future. Just please hurry up, sign some players, hurry up and sell some players. So talking of signing a striker, obviously Ekitike, expensive, Liverpool, Chelsea there, missed out on Delap, Gyökeres we could miss out on. Vlahovic is definitely one to watch. I don't think we're actively watching him, but I think if he's willing to take a wage cut, he's a player that we like. We've always had a bit of interest in him. Now, it's coming out via Give Me Sport through reportedly Dean Jones and Danny Rust that Vlahovic is demanding 200k a week to join United. He's currently on over 315k a week at Juventus. I think he's on like 330k a week on Juventus. Now, Juventus don't want him staying any longer because they don't think he's worth 300 grand a week, and that is fair enough. Now, I've got two stances here. First of all, Juventus wants Sancho. Could we do something going either way? We take a high earner off their wage bill. They take a high earner off our wage bill. Second of all, I think Vlahovic knows that Juventus want him to go this summer because they don't want to lose him for free. And he obviously wants to play minutes. Could he be saying that, he's willing to go to Man United for this amount of money to encourage other clubs to offer him that amount of money. Maybe all the other clubs are offering him 150k a week and he wants 200k a week because, 150k a week is more than halving his wages. And maybe he's put out an agent led that United offer him 200k a week because everyone knows that Man United need a striker. It's very well known fact. Maybe his agent is using us. But I think that United could move for Vlahovic. I think we could make a surprise move late for him in the window. I said this. I said, I think we'll get Mbeumo. We'll do some sales. I could see us looking at goalkeeper and midfielder after Mbeumo if this Gyökeres saga is still going on. Ekitike's price is still expensive. And I could see us going in late for someone like Vlahovic because Juventus will want to sell as a cut price. I could see United making a surprise move for Vlahovic. 200k a week isn't a lot when you think of the fact that if we let go of Sancho, Antony, and Rashford, well, like all of them are 200k a week earners. Antony's on 150k a week, but the other two are above 200k a week. Cunha's on 180, and Boomer's probably going to be on 180. I don't think Vlahovic has done enough to quite warrant it. Maybe the last year or so he hasn't quite lived up to the potential that I think Juventus thought they were signing. But he's still a good striker. He's still improving what we have, and I would welcome Vlahovic at Manchester United. 10 goals in Serie A last season. I know it's not crazy stats, but I think he would be a good addition. Continuing on, I think, in my opinion, we get Mbeumo down. I think we'll do that soon. We'll offload, hopefully, Sancho on a permanent, not a loan. Antony willing to take a wage cut. Betis are interested. Garnacho, hopefully we do that. We'll look at midfielders and strikers, look at goalkeepers. Look, if Gyökeres goes Arsenal and Akite gets swooped up or the price is high, I could see us going for him. I think if Gyökeres doesn't go to Arsenal, we may go for Gyökeres over him because Gyökeres' wage demands will be similar. But I think it's massively one to watch. Now, of course, we can't be funding any striker signings because after Mbeumo, we can't be funding any signings until we have some sales, some exits. Now, Rashford and Garnacho are the pure profit ones. Antony and Sancho massively help with wages. And we've been a bit worried about Rashford. There's been a bit of talk lately that he may have to go out on loan, blah, 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 blah. But, reports coming out from Barcelona are saying that Rashford's camp confirmed they still had recent talks with Barcelona despite the arrival of Nico Williams. The club consider him as a market opportunity, and there is talk of Barcelona going for both Rashford and Williams, which, unless Rafinha's going the other way, I don't know if it makes full sense. But I'd like to think that's true. We know that Rashford is very keen to join Barcelona, willing to take a wage cut according to some sources. But despite this Nico Williams to Barcelona move, there's still a bit of talk about Marcus Rashford making that move or getting that move. There was a report that came out today saying he's offered himself to Madrid, but I think someone was just looking for something to write to make clicks. I don't like this player's offered themselves to that club. It means nothing. Real Madrid don't need a left winger. They've got Mbappe and Vinicius, and arguably Rodrigo's better on the left. I think the last position Real Madrid are going to look at this window is a left winger. So I don't believe that he's offered himself to Madrid. I think he wants Barcelona, and we have to wait and see. It will be difficult. I think Rashford right now is going to be the hardest to sell, which is crazy because I think 40 million for Rashford's a really good price. But Rashford's ambitious. He'll take a wage cut because he wants to play Champions League football. He wants to play for a top club, and you can't blame him for that. In regards to Onana, obviously, there's teams interested in buying Onana, and Monaco have recently inquired. And Onana could go. We're not going to sign a goalkeeper unless Onana goes. I don't think we'll sign a goalkeeper for under 20 million if Onana stays to challenge him. But I don't think we'll sign an Emi Martinez if Onana was still here. Now, one of the goalkeepers we're looking at is Marco Konachesky. I don't know if I pronounced his surname right. Playing for Atalanta. Now, this was said by Damasio, and a couple of Italian media have got on that United are also looking at this goalkeeper. It's not just Emi Martinez. And I tweeted this 4 days ago that if we manage to offload Onana, Marco Konachesky's one to watch and could be available for 34 million, although because it's Man United, they're probably on 50 million. But I got a source that told me a couple of days ago we were interested in him, and 3 days later, Damasio, for me, is quite credible, is now saying the same. Amorim in the club, interested in new goalkeeper, but it's difficult to sell Onana. But with this Monaco having interest, Saudi having interest, you never know how much, but it depends how much they're willing to pay up for Onana. So we could see an out in regards to Onana. The Muppeteers suggest that Emi Martinez agent is strongly pushing for a move to United. And I think we're definitely interested in Emi Martinez because the sources and information around it is very credible. So there's definitely something going on with Emi Martinez, but it does feel a bit too much. It does feel a bit agent-led, all these stories about him. And I've always said with Emi Martinez, if we're really pushing in talks for him, then we must be believing Onana's going, because I can't see it happening if Onana's going to stay. Anyway, let's get into other exits. There was reports coming out from Italy that, Juventus have now joined the race for Sancho, and Juventus and Napoli both interested in Sancho. And Italian media reported that, Juventus have offered United 25 million for Sancho, which is really good. United are willing to sell Sancho for 25 million euros. and that, brilliant. But the problem with that is, we need Sancho to agree personal terms, and which means he will have to lower his wages, which he wouldn't do at Chelsea. Chelsea are willing to give us the money for Sancho, but they didn't agree personal terms. Now, Sky Sports are getting on this news. Obviously, it's been reported by Italian media all day, but not so much British media. And Sky Sports have jumped on it and said, yep, Juventus have explored the conditions of a deal for Sancho. They will formally approach Man United if they believe the move is realistic and they're in touch with Sancho's reps. Now, Sky Sports are suggesting they haven't made a bid, like Italian media suggesting, but they're suggesting, look, they're interested in Sancho. They're going to have conversations with him. And if they think they can agree personal terms with Sancho, aka will Sancho agree to a reasonable wage, or is he still going to demand ridiculous money, they will make a bid. So I think if, Juventus can agree personal terms with Sancho, then it's a done deal. I think, but will Sancho take a wage cut? That's the big question. I think he'd do well in Italy. I think it'd be stupid not to take a wage cut with, the World Cup coming up. Now, talking of taking a wage cut, Samuel Lucas did say that Antony would be prepared to take a 30% wage cut to leave United. Apparently, Antony's on about 150k a week and would be willing to go to Betis on 100k a week because Antony's thinking about the World Cup. But United need at least 32 million to avoid a PSR loss under Antony. Surely we don't have 32 million left. I mean, 85 divided by 5. Surely we don't have that money left. 17 times 2. Maybe we do. Maybe we do have 32 million left. I thought 30 million we could sell them for, but maybe we do need 35 because of PSR. That'll be an interesting one to watch. Anyway, people, that is all your latest Manchester United news, rounded up in less than 12 minutes for you guys. Big up everyone for watching. See you next time. Bye.